on? I look down the street, and there's probably no less than 100 people on bikes just like ripping down the street, like celebrating, and they've got no clothes on. A couple things came to mind at first. First off, logistically, that seems very uncomfortable. Second off, I mean, I commend you for being that confident.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We're back in another episode of the Davis Cola podcast, here with reoccurring guest Aidan Walmsley. Wow.
You're too kind. Thank you for having me.
I wanted to get started with a little trip to Montreal that Aidan had recently, where he sent me this video of a bunch of people bike riding down the street completely naked. And I had no idea what it was. I had zero context. He's like, this would be fun for the podcast. Why don't you elaborate on what you saw and what your trip was like a little bit there?
Honestly, like, Montreal in general is a very interesting place. It feels like it's almost not a part of Canada sometimes. But no, I went there.
I wonder why that feels that way.
Yeah, so I'm just going around shopping a little bit, and all of a sudden I see like a couple police cars just race down the street. I'm like, okay, like maybe there's something going on here. Mm-hmm. And then you just hear a bunch of like yelling, but in a positive way, and people are like cheering on what's going on. I look down the street, and there's probably no less than 100 people on bikes just like ripping down the street, cheering on what's going on. I look down the street, and there's probably no less than 100 people on bikes just like ripping down the street, like celebrating, and they've got no clothes on. A couple things came to mind at first. First off, logistically, that seems very uncomfortable. Second off, I mean, I commend you for being that confident to go through the streets. Maybe it's like a yearly thing for them, like this is just normal, but
like one of those subway undie runs or something like they do in New York.
Yeah, exactly. But apparently this happens, like I think like it's an annual type thing, and it didn't even just happen for like an hour and they were going through the streets. We saw them again come by a second time at night. So this was like a full day excursion type thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It was crazy.
What were they protesting? Like, what was the point of it?
I'd have to look into it more. Like, I don't.
Wait, there's a bunch of people running around naked and for protesting, and you had no idea what the point of the whole thing was.
Yeah, I think they definitely drew attention. Let me tell you that. But I could not tell you what it was for. If it's just like a fun thing, or if it's like for something a little bit more meaningful. Not sure here. But I gotta commend them for being that confident.
You know what I saw in Ottawa not long ago that really brought my eye? The amount of protests just going on a day-to-day basis. I was with my friend there, and we were walking around, and she goes, for like the third time, we were walking around the city for maybe 30 minutes, and I saw probably a third protest. I'm like, oh, is that the one we saw before? She's like, no, that's a completely different one. These people are like lobbying for Indigenous rights in Manitoba. I'm like, what about like how often does this happen? She's like, literally every day they stand here and they yell at the parliament because this is where people try and get things done. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a very hectic place to live.
I was gonna say definitely like meaningful cause, but at the same time, like it would be very stressful, like going street to street and just be like, what's this one about?
Speaking of which, do you remember obviously the trucker protest that happened like 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Her apartment was on the street where all that happened.
So it was just blocked off, basically.
She said when she looked out her bedroom window, she was like eye to eye with the guy in his truck, and they would just sit there for 24 hours a day honking, and she was losing her mind because she couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And she said she brought friends from out of town over, and then eventually the friends were like, how do you handle this honking? She's like, what honking? She just tuned it out after like 3 weeks of it going on.
I feel like at that point I would just pack my things up, get an Airbnb like further away. And no, I remember that though. That was crazy. Like there was a lot of people there. Everyone was very passionate in the moment. I think they even shut down like the downtown commercial center and shop area too. So like,
and there's people still there doing it, and I'm just confused what's they're still protesting.
What we're here for now. Yeah.
I don't know, because I thought it was like, oh, okay, maybe it's like, oh, they don't want the mask mandate, or they're like tired of just things with the whole pandemic. I'm like, both those things are pretty much over and resolved.
Yeah.
I was confused. I don't know. People just seem like they wanted to protest, but good protests never hurt nobody. It seems like the naked people.
Some people are just angry here. Some people just want to go out and be naked. You never know what it's about.
Yeah.
So it was funny though, because like I wasn't just there alone. I was with a friend, and he lives in Montreal. He's always lived in Montreal, and you know, I'm standing there just completely like flabbergasted by this. I've never seen something like this at all. And he's just like, oh yeah, this is just the bikers, dude. Like this happens year to year. And I was like, oh. He didn't really know what it was about, but I guess it's a more common thing than you would think.
I thought that was illegal. Like I thought that you get arrested for just running around naked. You couldn't.
No, there was a police escort. Like they were like fully like navigating them through the streets. So,
wish I had that. But other than that, Montreal was fun. I know you You've been there a few times, haven't you?
Yeah, so like this trip was a little bit different because it was a really short trip. I went
Yeah.
up like Friday afternoon and I left Sunday like evening or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted the purpose of this trip obviously to like visit my friends up there, but I
Yeah.
didn't want to feel like a tourist going this time. Like even though I was there for a short period of time, I didn't want to go there and like check out all the typical things. I wanted to be as if I was just like catching up with a friend. So
You're playing it cool.
yeah, I'm trying to play cool, dude. Like, you know, I'm from the area. Except every time I go into a new restaurant or something like that, they'll be like, bonjour, hi. And I'm like, hi, can I get a medium coffee?
You're like, oh yeah, this guy's totally Quebecois.
Yeah. No, they're pretty cool about it, though. Like, I thought for sure some people would be kind of frustrated that, like, I wasn't going with the French route, which I really should be. Because, you know, moving to France soon, I should practice the French. But no, like everyone was really, really cool. All I did there was we went for a hike the one day and there's this beautiful like overlook. This is actually a bit of a touristy spot, to be honest with you. But it kind of overlooks the entire city. And I was able to just kind of like hike up there. And let me tell you, it took the wind out of me. I got to get my cardio up by the time I was done that.
Yeah.
But there's this like huge hiking path that takes like a little while to go up there.
Yep.
And my friend I was with thought it would be a good idea for us to not just hike up, but to run up. So we're running up past everyone, and I'm absolutely winded halfway up there. We finally get up to the top, and wanted to get some photos, but of course I'm drenched as we get to the top. So probably won't be making the gram, not going to lie here.
Montreal's cool, though. It's very different from the rest of Canada because I feel like it has a much stronger European influence than anywhere else in our country.
Yeah.
And going there, it feels like it's another place. Like, just the amount of old buildings, old churches, traditions they have in that city.
Yeah.
Very different from Toronto. Like, night and day difference.
It's funny you say that because, I mean, I'm not a huge Toronto person. I feel like when I go there, it's very, like, industrial in a sense. A lot of the buildings even look industrial. And you usually hear people say, I like to go to this place because of the culture. But sometimes you're like, what does that mean? Like, you hear the culture, but what does that mean? But what I've actually seen in Montreal is while you're out and about in the nighttime, there's not just people going and doing things that require you to pay a fee or something like that. People are just out doing picnics, out going for walks, like just enjoying the actual natural landscape. And even in the city, like they'll install swings in the middle of like a commercial area just for people to enjoy. Like there's just little things that kind of all add up to contribute to this different vibe in the city. And I kind of like that so far. And it was a good mix of, you know, of course having the commercial buildings, but also, you know, having some greenery too. So it was a good mix. I don't feel like I'm like claustrophobic in a concrete jungle as I do sometimes in Toronto.
Absolutely. And I think a big plus that Montreal has over a lot of other places is its walkability and it's great transport because it's an island and they just kind of link everything together.
Yeah.
That's something I noticed. Everyone can get around relatively easily without a car. Like I have cousins on the West Island and they all took buses and trains to get to school, where like here that's completely unheard of. Everyone had to either get a ride or like you took a school bus.
I mean, my friend doesn't even have his G1. He doesn't need it. He doesn't need his license. There's really no purpose. He has like the Metro, and I mean, it actually seemed to work way better than the TTC here anyways. So, I mean, good stuff.
I don't know. TTC is actually not too bad. I don't know. Did I tell you
Cut
what
all the stabbing.
Okay, well, ignoring that, the actual functionality of it's not bad. But did I tell you what I did this weekend? I don't think I did.
No, give me the rundown. I told you my weekend.
I was supposed to go camping, right?
Okay, right.
I was supposed to go on this big portaging trip. It was going to be 30 kilometers, 10 kilometers of portaging, 3 days. It was going to be great. Then the area that we're going to is on tornado watch. And on top of that, there are 3 days worth of 80% chance thunderstorms the entire time we're supposed to be there.
Right.
And I started looking up like, oh, can you canoe during a thunderstorm? Is this possible? I was like, yeah. Everyone's like, I would highly recommend against it, but if your life depends on it, you can do a zigzag pattern along the shore. It'll add 3 hours to no matter what you're trying to do, but you could do it. I'm like, oh, fuck. So we just canceled the trip. We said, screw it.
I was going to say, I feel like if you get to the point where you're asking if severe weather and doing a leisurely activity outside can mingle together well, you probably should just cancel it at that point.
Exactly. And I was like, this is supposed to be fun. That doesn't sound fun at all. Anyway, so we still wanted to do a big kind of crazy physical activity. And I got Michael and I Michael's so down. He's like, he was super bummed that we couldn't go. I was like, all right, Michael, what can we do? And I was thinking, and 2 weeks ago, my friend Steven, the chef, came out of nowhere back to Burlington from Toronto, and he biked. He biked for 5.5 hours, the whole 65 kilometers. He just decided on when like, oh, I'm biking, and he went through a storm. So I was like, wow.
Is he like a marathon, like
No,
a triathlon?
he
type
hasn't worked
person?
out in years. He was just out in,
How?
and in midway he just stopped at a restaurant and had spinach dip and a beer, and he's like, all right, and I'm gonna keep going.
I feel like that's something you could only do in like your early 20s, because after that, like that would be impossible.
Well, he biked directly to our friend Lucas's house. We were all hanging out, and he just laid there like a puddle the entire time. He's like, I can't do anything. Anyways, Michael and I thought that would be a great thing to do. We should all go, and we're gonna bike to Toronto. So Michael and I, me on a mountain bike,
Yeah.
Michael on a road bike, biked the whole 65 kilometers. We did it in 3.5 hours. It was actually beautiful. By the end of it, I couldn't feel my legs. I was dying, but it was actually a lot of fun.
You know, that sounds like one of those things that like you say, yo, we should do this sometime, and then it just never ever comes to fruition ever. But kudos to you for making that happen. Like, I've had far too many plans where like you say, you know what, I want to do this one day, and your friends are like, I'm totally down, and then when it comes down to planning it, no one's actually down. Like, at one point I had plans to do a cross country road trip back in like 2021 across Canada. Never happened. Not even a semblance of planning happened for that.
That would have been the perfect time too.
And then another opportunity was we were going to hike the entire Bruce Peninsula, or like the Bruce Trail. Do you know how big that thing is?
Doesn't it start in the U.S.?
It could possibly. I thought this was just like a local
It goes
thing
up
in
to
Niagara.
Tobermory.
Yeah, it goes high. Like, it goes really high.
That's like how many? It's like easily a few, like maybe around 100 kilometers, right?
Yeah.
That's a day. People take weeks to do that.
Yeah, so I was a little over my head in agreeing to do this, so that never came to fruition either.
Yeah.
But here's all the dead plans that just never happened, I guess.
Oh, that's too bad, man. Do you ever want to try and do one of those big physical things and like, oh yeah, let's go do it, but that's too bad.
Honestly, I kind of do. Like, I don't want to get to a point where I'm like in my 30s. I know I'm really, early 20s right now, but I don't want to get to a point in my 30s or later in my 40s where I'm like, wow, like I had youth on my side and never took advantage of like the physical activity I could have done. Like, I have family friends who've done Ironmans, triathlons, like biking competitions, swimming competitions.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I'm up for a full triathlon, but even if I did like a mini triathlon or something like that, I would totally be down to push myself.
Half triathlon or something?
Yeah. Like, I'm nowhere near ready or capable
Swimming
for
is
that.
brutal, man. Swimming will kill you. Like, if you think running is hard,
Yeah.
nothing in our day-to-day lives trains you for swimming in the slightest. You have to actually swim. So someone who's like, I'll go and swim like a few kilometers, they'll die. It kills them.
Yeah.
And back to what you're saying about getting old. I feel that lately. I'm like, wow, I'm not a kid anymore. This is like, this is getting a bit crazy out there. So yeah, getting as much of life in and before you're 30, I think is a good thing, because we'll be 30 before we know it, and that's gonna be scary as hell.
I still remember being 15, and that was however many years ago, 7 years ago.
You know what's weird? Like, I don't feel like a different person from back then. I think back to that, I'm like, I wasn't that different from now. Like, obviously some things have changed, but like,
still the same Davis deep down there.
Yeah. Like, oh shit, like all these responsibilities of life are coming on now.
I was thinking about that too. Like, and I mean, someone who's much older than us is gonna laugh and just be like, "What are you talking about? Like, you're turning 22."
I think this happens every time we talk. We're like, "Oh God, getting older."
No, but like, okay, I think 22. That still sounds kind of young, right? Like turning 22 this year. But when I hear 23, I'm like, oh, like, soon you're gonna be mid 20s. Like, that's more than a quarter of your life. That's crazy.
No. I think it's just because people are worried that they're not gonna have everything they want to be accomplished, and by that time you're not a kid.
Yeah.
You have the capability of doing it, so you don't have the excuse.
Yeah.
It's a scary thing. There's a song I know that I actually really like. It's called 23. It's funny enough. And it's about this girl who's about to turn 23, and she's like, I miss my fake ID. I miss my bedroom. Like, what am I going to do?
I know exactly. I know the song.
Yeah.
That's a good song.
Yeah. Same taste in music. Yeah. Actually, I really like that song you sent me earlier. I had to laugh. Aidan and I have been having conversations about the type of music he likes, and we boiled it down to it's stuff that someone had to make quickly in their bedroom with low budget recording equipment.
Yeah. And
you sent me one the other day that it sounded like the people were still laying down in bed while they recorded it. I'm like that, and like the mic was probably like halfway across the room, and they were just like,
It's like campfire music, but they're just like they improvise, like the lyrics just come to them on the spot. And don't even think of like a professional microphone, like the ones that we're using are way too high quality for what I'm thinking. Imagine like an Apple microphone that would have came with like your iPod or iPhone with like the old mic. That's definitely what they're using to record this stuff.
You know what that reminds me of? You know Steve Lacy? Obviously, you know Steve Lacy.
Yeah.
He got his start like recording. What was his first big song? So before his
I know what you're talking about. Something Red.
Yeah. Crap. I don't know. Anyways, that whole album was recorded on his iPhone using GarageBand.
Yeah. I think it's called Dark Red.
Dark Red. Yeah, Dark Red. Great song. That's where I first heard him. But I thought that was wild. Like, you really don't need much. You don't need this whole fancy setup.
You do need musical talent, and that is something I do not have.
Yes, you do.
Well, okay, I'll give you a little backstory here. I don't know if I told you this. Maybe I did.
Did you want to be a musician?
No. Back in my high school days, though, you know, some people say, oh, I was really into football. You know, I was a huge athlete. I was a rower. I played the trombone.
Nice.
So I was a big hit with the ladies, as you know.
I didn't know this about you.
Yeah, so and I don't just mean like I played it occasionally. Like I started it in grade 9 and I carried it all the way through to grade 12. I ended up being on the music council at one point. I did the jazz band, the concert band. I went on a cruise to Europe and I played for the guests.
That sounds awesome, actually.
Dude, it was actually fun. Like
where'd you go on the cruise?
It was like around Europe. I think I guess it would be a Mediterranean cruise. So we started in Barcelona. We went to Cannes. We went to a couple places in Italy. I think my favorite place out of all the places we went was Ez, France. So it's like super south of France. And then we also went to Monaco. And by day, we'd be just exploring different countries. And by night, we'd be playing like music for the guests at like a dinner reception or something like that.
That's insane. How long did that last for?
And it was only like a quick trip. It was like a I don't know, a week thing or something like that. But it was like there's a lot of preparation to make sure we had our stuff together to be able to play.
So you were really good. You got paid for that.
No. This was while I was a student. I wasn't like.
Oh, you didn't get paid for that?
No. This was
paid
like
to be there?
I paid to be there. Yeah. Don't think of me as a professional player by
I was
any
like,
means.
wow, Aidan got paid to do a cruise. How did I not know his amazing trombone talent?
No. Maybe at a party, I'll have to pull it out and just start, ripping some trombone.
That would actually. Do you still have one?
No, I don't.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
Imagine if I did. Yeah, maybe I'll have to invest in one again here.
I played trumpet in band, but half the time I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I'll go like kind of up here. Oh,
Yeah.
there's a note. I like loosely hit it there.
Have you ever seen the movie Whiplash?
Yeah.
Okay, so like as much as that's exaggerated and it wasn't exactly like that, there were definitely some scary moments where like if you absolutely like butchered something, you're like, uh-oh, like, the conductor sees everything. Like, and it is exactly like in the movie where, he's got the little baton and he's going up and down, counting 4 time.
You're sweating.
And yeah, like there'd be some times where like, not gonna lie, I didn't practice for stuff that I should have. And you'd get called out. You'd be like, all right, so you guys are doing great. Aidan with the trombone over there. So you're going to sit the rest of this one out because you have no idea what you're doing. Come back when you're
benched.
ready. Oh yeah, I got benched as the trombone player.
Wow, I had no idea. I played like for maybe 3 years in high school, but that was about it. I had no idea. That's really cool, Aidan.
The only sport I actually got into in high school was ultimate. And much as people roast that, is actually a really great sport.
No, I played it too. It's fun.
Yeah. You gotta be talented with it and like flexible and high cardio and.
Like, you ever seen a professional ultimate game? I don't know if they have that, but just like I don't know, people
they
are really
do
good
somewhere. Yeah.
Like the way that they move that frisbee around, they get in the positions, is insane.
Yeah.
They dive for it. They go in the air. Oh, it's crazy.
Is it an Olympic sport? I don't think so.
I don't know. Well, skateboarding is an Olympic sport now. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
Probably expand it. Yeah.
Who knows?
Get ping pong in there if it's not already.
I did wrestling in high school, and I think that was probably one of the best things I ever did.
Yeah, tell me about your wrestling career here. I want to hear more.
It wasn't as crazy as it seems. Like I was a really skinny kid.
Right.
Up until forever, honestly. It was like I was shorter than everyone else, and I was skinnier than everyone else, probably up until grade 10. But the one thing I could do was like I was pretty good athletically. I could run. Then the summer between grade 9 and 10, something happened, and I was like, I'm gonna start working out. And I was lifeguarding at the time, and I was like outside, and I had free access to a gym. Like, you know what, I'm gonna bulk up. So then I had a little bit of muscle mass, and I had a little bit more confidence. Like, you know what, it's time to fight people. so I wanted to join the wrestling team, and I was really lucky because my school had actually a wrestler that came here is one of our gym coaches. His name was Adam Baxter, absolute legend, and without him, the program would not have been possible. And I just went in and was like, okay, let's see what this is like. And I absolutely loved it. I thought it got kind of this. It was great exercise, first of all, because it's like a full body workout and you don't realize it. And it got this kind of, I don't know, almost like a primal urge out of me of just like throw, wrestle, do this, and it got all this energy out, and I loved it.
Yeah.
Tournaments and stuff were incredibly nerve wracking though, because your ego is kind of on the line. You have to think like, okay, I could walk into this and get destroyed. That's just a possibility here.
Yeah.
And I was pretty lucky. I think it took till my like third or fourth tournament before I was beat, but that's just because I don't know. I don't know. I practiced quite a bit. It was like every day.
They make you like tap out or like what? Or is it like
how does it
system?
work?
Yeah, like
Yeah, so
I'm very ignorant in terms of how the rest of the world works.
It's like imagine jiu-jitsu, but instead of tapping, it's points and submissions. So in wrestling, a submission counts as if someone's shoulder blades are laid across the mat for a certain amount of time, and the referee decides whether or not they're like, I don't know, in a completely submitted position. It's not like they're being choked out or they're in an arm bar or something. That you don't do that typically. No, and then yeah, so it's all kind of for show. It's a sport. It's not like a actual martial art. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, I loved it and I thought it was great. And then I wanted to take it up a notch in grade 12, and I did the captain role for a little bit, which was fun, but I had a knee injury, so I couldn't do too much in that last year. Still a lot of fun. It was a great time, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I think honestly everyone should do either that or like a martial art or something. Like I really want to get into jiu-jitsu these days. It's just it's tough.
I did. I think I told you this, but I did karate for a number of years.
No way. No, you didn't tell me this.
Oh, really? You're learning more about me right now. So I started when I was 12. I did soccer for like a long time, and then I was like, you know what? I want to switch it up a little bit. I want to try something new. And there's this little, like this karate basically dojo in Grimsby, where I'm from. And I was like, you know what? Let's try this. So I started with my sister when I was 12 years old. She was much younger. And I worked my way all the way from when I was 12 years old till I was 17 years old, and I ended up getting my black belt.
Whoa.
So it was really fun, but it taught me a couple of things. And I mean, a lot of people have done karate in their life before, but it's one thing I think to get all the way to the end, and you learn a lot. First thing is you have to like memorize a lot, right? There's a lot of like routines that you have to memorize. So it's not just like fighting. It's like almost think of it like a dance, but you use like a lot of like the techniques for fighting, right?
Okay.
I think there was about 13 or 14 of those I had to have memorized. They made me do runs. I'd never ran before like this experience doing karate, and like I'd have to do like 5K runs, and this was probably the best shape I've ever been of my life. And then I also had to do sparring and grappling. So that was really interesting. It was like the first time ever getting absolutely destroyed, but it was
it's a very humbling experience.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What's that quote? It's like everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. I relate with that.
Yeah, I completely believe that. Everyone, oh my God, I'm so glad I wrestled, because now sometimes you'll hear like, you ever heard someone go, oh yeah, like if someone tried to attack me, I would grab the back of their head, I'd throw them to my knee, I'd do a side kick, and they'd be done. They'd be on the ground.
Yeah.
And that whole plan is anticipating that person's going to stand there and let you do that to them.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Yeah, no. That's the thing is like, I really liked karate, and I think it had some great benefits, but also like a lot of the stuff that you learn is like the person's standing there and they're ready for you to just absolutely discombobulate them in these weird contortionistic ways.
Yeah.
So
did you do a lot of sparring, or was it just like it was just technique practice and basically workouts?
Yeah, so no, there was a big sparring component. Basically, they made you end up going through this final test. There was 3 tests, and then on the 4th test, they make you do all of the routines as I mentioned. It's about 5 hours, so your mind gets a little weary near the end. You had to run. But then there's also a huge sparring component, and you're not just sparring against like kids that are younger than you. You also have to go up against the sensei at one point, a couple of the senseis, and they definitely push you to your limits, you could say. So that was probably actually my favorite component of it, because that's the most practical situation you'll ever be in, and you have headgear on, and you have like hand pads, you have some stuff to cover your feet too. So I mean, it was fun. I learned a lot through that too, but I think I would probably get into martial arts, maybe a different type of martial art though next.
Yeah. Like, did you ever get, I don't know, seriously hurt in sparring, or your bell rung a little bit?
So yeah, like in one of the tests, basically, as I mentioned, like you're really, really tired. Sometimes you let your guard down a little bit. and I had to be taught a lesson for that. So
Nope.
I basically got cracked over the nose, and like my nose is really sensitive for some reason, so it just started like gushing blood.
Oh, God.
And like you just have to keep rolling with it per se. So
Oh, no.
that was the first time I was like, oh, well, I'm not gonna do that again. But well, it was fun. If I could go back, I don't think I would do anything different.
No?
No, no, I would do it again.
Yeah, I much preferred kind of the individual sports to team stuff. Like I played hockey and soccer growing up too, but I think I excelled at wrestling much more just because it felt like I had everything in my control. And something about the hand-eye coordination of hockey, I just could never get down.
Dude,
I always
I'm
felt
terrible with
like, oh, what's happening
stick
here?
handling, puck handling.
No, I could never do it. But yeah, just taking kind of it into my own hands and figuring everything out that way in a more tactile way, because it's almost like I feel like it's physical chess. That's how I saw it.
Yeah.
It's like it's high stakes chess where you have to figure out how to maneuver the other person and use slight tricks and different ways to get around to accomplish the goal that you're both trying to do that only one person can.
Yeah. I'm interested about that too, because like for wrestling, obviously weight has a huge factor, but you're likely weighed up against someone that has a similar kind of disposition to your body, or so like I guess once you remove that element, it is really just about like the strategy behind it, right? Like how you're gonna move someone, how you're gonna throw them off their balance.
Yeah.
I think I saw, and I'm pretty sure this is illegal, but I'm pretty sure I saw a video where someone got like submitted or something like that. They go to do a handshake, and all of a sudden the wrestler that lost like absolutely clocks the guy in the face, and he
Oh
falls
yeah,
to the
you
ground.
can't do that.
Yeah.
I think I've seen the same one. A lot have been popping up recently for some reason. They just like start kicking and fighting each other afterwards. That's super. No.
You
like,
never had an experience like that?
No. Everyone's. Oh, I did get I got fish hooked. So that where they like dig your hand into their eye, because I was submitting a guy and he was just kind of flailing around on his back.
Yeah.
And his hand just popped onto my face because I was laid across his chest.
Oh.
And he found my eye and he just tried to grip and pushed here. He never actually got in, but he pushed. And I had where his finger was, a black ring for my graduation photos for high school. And I think they tried to edit it out a little bit, because I remember seeing
that's kind of gnarly.
It was kind of cool. I was proud of it. I was like, oh, this is a great time. I get to show this off now every time I want to show off my graduation photos. Other than that, nothing. Oh, I did get absolutely whipped to the ground once. Like, this is the first time I was up against someone who was bigger than me. They must have
experience.
I didn't cut weight for this weight class, and they definitely did. The guy was taller and bigger than me, and I was like, oh crap, this guy's gonna whip me. First thing he does is he head and arm throws me, where your head and your arm get locked in under their armpit, and the full force of their torque of their torso goes into slamming your lifeless body into the ground. It's like after that, I was like, I'm done. I don't know where I am. This is it. That was probably the most brutal finish I've ever had done to me. Other than that, nothing really
That's
that
like
crazy.
some Mortal Kombat type stuff, man.
Yeah, I got Mortal Kombat.
That's intense. That's a little too much for me here.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. I still thought it was fun. I'm trying to think if I had any bad injuries. I did have So one time this guy ankle picked me, where you have they weave their arm through your ankles in a way that locks them up.
Okay.
And the way you're supposed to defend that is by scooching your butt in, so you're not just like a celery stick being rolled around, and you're harder to roll.
Yeah.
But that just made it worse. And I remember that night I went to a school dance, and I was dancing on the ankles that this guy had just wrangled up, and the next day I actually couldn't walk. It was horrible. Other than that, nothing too bad.
You say other than that, not too bad, as you're like crippled in a wheelchair for 2 days afterwards.
I don't feel it anymore. Like I don't feel the injuries still. But
yeah. Would you ever get back into it part-time, or you think like that was a good time of my life, time to move on?
I was thinking about getting into it in university, because Brock obviously has a really good wrestling program, but my heart wasn't in it. And I honestly didn't think I was good enough to compete at a university level, because I've talked to a few of the wrestlers here, and like they do like 6-year degrees, they take different courses, they all live together.
I was gonna say, I feel like if you're a varsity athlete, you're not really like, obviously your degree is an important component of going to university, but like the sport is your main focus, and you're just getting university done on the side. So yeah,
they care way more than I did, and they're also all way better. So that's like and Brock is like the #1 school in the country for wrestling.
Really?
Yeah. They have probably one of the best wrestling programs around.
I didn't know that. I did have a question for you. I want to flip it back.
I love questions from you, Aidan.
I'm going to be interviewing the interviewer now.
Absolutely.
So, we were just talking about what kind of areas that we're interested in: business, engineering, computer science. Would you rather work a job where you are entirely fulfilled, but you don't necessarily make a lot of money? Or would you rather make a bunch of money, like I'm talking like $500,000, $600,000 a year, but you despise your day to day? You dread going into work on Sundays, or like on Sunday, you dread having to go into work the next day. You know, which way would you rather have it? And because you know how they always say, if you like what you do, you'll never have to work a day in your life. And I think to some degree that's true. But at the end of the day, a job is a job. And there's going to be days you don't want to go to work. There's going to be days that you love what you do.
For sure.
So.
Am I making like a living wage? Like, am I comfortable
Yeah.
in the one that I like?
Yeah, but just know that there's an opportunity cost to have so much more.
It's a tempting one. I feel like people make that choice all the time.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm saying. My heart and like the place of like, oh, I know like what's going to be good for everyone around me and probably even good for myself is the lower paying job that I love.
Yeah.
But then that little part of me that's like, what if you made all that money? What if you did all that?
Yeah.
Just threw it all away. Who cares? But no, I think something that I'm really focusing on now is obviously what do you like? What are the things that you want to get out of this? And I think I would like to think that I'd take the job that would fill me more.
Yeah.
And hopefully if it is something that I do love, who knows, maybe it would lead to more monetary profit down the line.
Yeah.
But that isn't necessarily as important as leading a fulfilled life. Because I think you can have money and not be happy just like you can the other way around.
Yeah. The reason I asked this is because I saw like a Harvard study the other day and they were studying what brings you happiness.
Yeah.
And it's funny because pursuing happiness doesn't make you happy, but doing things that make you happy will lead to a content lifestyle, which sounds kind of weird and indirect. But I think that there's probably some kind of equilibrium where like you make enough and you feel fulfilled enough to where you will end up being happy. But if you just chase money, like I think it also like you'd probably have so much stress from that it could probably inversely affect your health, right? And then at that point, like what are you even doing at that point?
Yeah, that reminds me of a lot of the people that I met when I was in Costa Rica, the locals specifically, because the country's saying is pura vida, which is supposed to, I think a direct translation is like pure life, which means just like live your life, like don't sweat the small stuff, don't worry about it all. And the way that you see that in the locals is they, on average, just even, I don't know what they actually are, but they appear much happier with everything.
Right.
And I'll give you a little anecdotal story, podcast exclusive.
Okay.
Jordan, my friend Jordan, he was down there for 3 months and I met him there. And we went out to this waterfall in this little beach town called Dominical. It was beautiful. And we were horrible planners. We didn't realize what time the park would close. And we get to the waterfall, swim in it a little bit, and apparently they have like, I don't know, something happens and the waterfall past a certain point just starts to overflow. And it was to the point where we had to evacuate the area. And he's like, all right, park's closing. The waterfall's just overflowing. Okay, time to go. So we get back to the parking lot, and the taxi that we had told to pick us up there just didn't come.
He was like, nope, I'm out.
Nope. And as the cars were starting to leave, we're like, literally in the middle of the jungle. We took a 30-minute drive through nothing but bush to get to where we were.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And we were asking people who looked like tourists around us, like, hey, could you give us a ride? And no one was biting. So we were like, crap, what are we going to do? And we started just sitting there looking all sad. And this parking lot attendant who, this parking lot attendant who was definitely a local who only spoke Spanish came up to us and started asking us, like, what's up? What do you guys need? And through very broken English and a little bit of Google Translate, we communicated that we were stranded and needed help. And he offered to call us a ride, which ended up just being his friend, which is super common down there. And we paid his friend $20. He got us out of there. But in the time that it took his friend to come, he was trying to like communicate with us and talk with us. Yeah. It wasn't going well. I tried speaking French to him a little bit. Yeah. And I was like, that didn't work. He speaks Spanish. Why did I think that would translate? Yeah. After a little bit of that, we like maybe said a few words like, oh, it's raining. Like, oh, okay, cool. Jordan and I were sitting on a bench, and he reaches behind us and grabs this little bag off a shelf behind us. And we're like, oh, what is it? And he grabbed a bag of dog food, and he pulled it up and he goes, follow me. And we go follow him, and we walk maybe like 5 minutes down the road, and we go to this little jungle community that was around the corner, and it was like 10 or 12 houses literally in the middle of the jungle.
Yeah.
All in a row, and they're like a little happy town.
Yeah.
There's chickens in the front yard and all these things. And he was like, come, come. And we stand up front of his house, and this little dog pops out of his house, and he starts feeding it the dog food.
That's cute.
And this guy just seemed like the happiest person in the world. And I remember having such an aha moment of, this guy is literally living in a hut in the jungle and is happier than 90% of the people I know living in Canada right now.
Yeah.
What does he have that we don't? He has a dog and dog food in the forest. Then he just started pulling out like all these sculptures he makes the entire time, smiling ear to ear. Just so kind, so forthcoming. He was offering us food. We had no idea who he was. We couldn't even speak the same language.
And you'll probably never speak to that man again.
I'll never see him again.
Yeah.
He was so nice. And it was such an eye-opening moment of what it really means to be happy and what you need to be happy. And clearly it's not very much, because this guy was working with what he had, but he didn't seem like he really needed much. And he was probably one of the happiest people I've ever met.
That's definitely one of those situations of perspective. It's like he's never known anything else. So he's like, I'm happy with what I got. You know, he's healthy. He lives out there, and that's perfect for him. And I think that's amazing.
Here's a counterpoint that one of my coworkers told me once. He was like, "Well, if they want what we have, they just can't get it. That's the difference." I'm like, "Oh, that's I don't know how I feel about that one."
But if you offered it to them, I don't know if they would even take it.
They might, not realizing what it would bring.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what? Imagine trying to describe that to someone. It's like you've got your little life in the jungle, in this little hut. You've got everything you need. You got your dog out there. You've got a happy life. What if you trade that to work 8 hours every day, 40 hours a week, and we'll pay you, but you're going to have to pay a lot of that money to go live in an apartment, which is pretty small, maybe smaller than your hut, maybe the same size.
Yep.
But you get a pretty cool commute every day.
We got about 5 minutes before we got to cut off, but I want to make a really point. You just remind me of something.
Yeah.
I have been watching this guy on YouTube. I don't know what has been going on with my algorithm lately. I've entered full old man mode.
Okay.
I've been getting recommended urban planning videos.
Okay.
I've been following this guy who used to live in London, Ontario, and he took his family to Amsterdam, specifically because of, well, he traveled a lot and just found it was a great place.
Cool city,
but also because he hated how car-dependent suburbias ran North America. Now you might think, what is a car-dependent suburbia? I only know about regular suburbia. It's because there are ways of living in suburbs that are not the ways that we do.
And they're not like condos.
No, it's just mandated in North America. It's actually illegal to build it any other way. What he's talking about are suburbs that are built around people being able to walk everywhere they need to go or bike with very little need for a car. And the way that he described it was like, that is exactly the kind of neighborhood I like. Like, think about, you ever been to one of those kind of Victorian-style neighborhoods in Toronto?
I know exactly what you're talking about,
And you walk around, like, there's a corner store there. I can walk 5 minutes and be on the main street where everything's happening. I can walk 5 minutes the other direction, there's a grocery store.
Yeah.
Everything you need is within a quick walk around you, or there's great transit to get to the places you can't go to.
Yeah.
That is the exact kind of place I'd love to live. And I think if you could get that and eliminate someone's commute, that would eliminate so many of the reasons people have to be unhappy in these days.
No, that's true. I mean, like, ultimately, you can have a much more peaceful day instead of having to be in traffic, having to wait around. And, like, I think there's something to be said to have, live in a house that has a little bit of character, right? It's not just copy paste where your condo looks like 150 in the same general
it's like Black Mirror.
vicinity. Yeah, exactly. It's not like suburbia. So I think that's going to be interesting. We'll probably experience that when we both go to Europe just to see what the difference is. And I know Spain, too. Maybe it's Madrid. There's like these huge blocks, like city blocks.
It's Barcelona.
It's
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Like, I've seen an aerial shot, and like the architecture on that is just amazing.
Why don't you describe that for people who don't know?
Yeah, so basically you can almost imagine like a checkerboard per se.
Yep.
A big kind of area in Barcelona has a kind of a contingency of different buildings, and that's likely where you're going to have a lot of your residential housing, and maybe there's going to be some grocery stores in there. And then there's just a really open area of grass where you're able to kind of congregate and commute, and then to the left of that there's going to be housing again, and it kind of just checkerboards all the way over as far as you can potentially see. And there's a couple advantages, is that you don't have to get stuck in traffic. You can reach what you need in a pretty close general vicinity. If you do need transit, it's very, very close. So I think it's just kind of, it's a completely different ideal as to how we envision life and urban planning.
That just sounds so much more ideal in my mind. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I look around in the new suburbs being built in around Ontario, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that does not look like an appealing place to live.
See, I'm of two minds here because I'm like, I agree with that totally. And I don't think, like, if you're in Toronto, there's no point in having a car because it's going to take you 3 hours to get out of the city.
Mm-hmm.
But I also love driving. Like, that is one of my passions. Like, I absolutely love driving.
Yeah.
But I like driving on, like, back roads and stuff like that. So,
What this guy's saying is not to completely eliminate cars, because obviously that would be dumb.
mm-hmm.
It's just eliminate the necessity for them. Like, have
Right.
other options.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, have your car, make it so you can get anywhere you need to get, but eliminate the need to be able to go grocery shopping with a car. Eliminate the need to get to work, go to school, all of that. Like, think about if someone doesn't have a car
Yeah.
where you live, how could they possibly get around?
Taxi, and that gets pretty expensive.
Yeah.
You're going to be walking a long, long time if you decide to go that route. We got
Exactly.
cold winters here, so, you know, if something's not close, like, you're going to kind of freeze outside for a while. So
It just kind of opened maybe I'll send you the video, but it kind of opened up my mind to like what the possibilities are, and it didn't even cross my mind as that was something that could be changed. Like, oh, that's just how life is.
I wonder too if that would aid with like some of the homelessness issues too, because transport would probably be a pretty big barrier if you don't have funds for either public transport or access to a vehicle.
Yeah.
You're not able to get around, right? So no, that's definitely an interesting concept. I'll have to search that up.
Who knows? All right, Aidan. I think you have a meeting to go to, so I'm gonna just thank you really quick for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man.
Hopefully, maybe we can get one more in before we go off to Europe, and you get a quick recap of what we think our trips will be like before, and then who knows, maybe we'll do a recap after.
Oh, maybe we'll have to meet up in Spain and we can do a little impromptu podcast there.
I'm trying to think of how I can keep this up, and I think it might just have to go straight to audio while I'm in Europe. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna be putting them out on Spotify soon, so we'll be
Nice.
getting it out there. Yeah, but thanks for
having
coming
me,
out, man.
Yeah.